Okay. So guys, your last session, okay, the complete your introduction part of PLSQL we discussed in the last class. Okay, now? Right. And the next one. So the next one is called as what now? Cursors. Okay. Now you can observe. So basically, cursors are where you want to use here and what it was. Okay. Now you can take running notes. Take running notes. Okay. Now listen, guys. Generally, cursors are why, sir? Why we need to require cursors? Why we need to require cursors? Brightness. Wali? Brightness తక్కువ ఉందండి చూడు ఒకసారి బ్రైట్నెస్ తక్కువ ఉందంట అలాగే వస్తుందా ఉందనుకో లేదనుకుంటా ఒకసారి చూడు guys, you can check now. Now, okay. Okay. No, no. Okay, now it is okay, na? Brightness. Okay. Now come out and see. Cursors are the main purpose of cursors and why and where we want to use means here observe, guys. Generally in our database, what it was happen, suppose you need to send a select request. Now you can see, guys. Whenever we need to send, okay, so request. Listen, ma. Today, very serious classes happen 2 p.m. Again, you are creating the same repetition will come to here. Listen. Okay, start class started na. Now, so careful observe. Suppose when I'm sending this request to my Oracle server, okay, select a star from EMP. What it was happen, guys, here, your entire table is going to be retrieval. So that means in your EMP table, how many number of rows are there? That all rows are retrieval. It may be 100 rows, 1 row, 10 row, 200 rows is none of the matter. But once I'm sending this request to my server, then server will send it to you complete table data. That means all rows, set of rows, it will be sending to you. Okay, now, right. But the requirement is what now? These 14 rows are not, I don't want it to get at a time. I don't want it to get as a collection of rows, as a group of rows at a time. I don't want it. And these 14 rows, how I need to fetch to my client application, I want to fetch these rows in which manner? One by one manner. So that means it's not at a time all rows. The row, how I need to define or how I need to fetch means row by row or one by one. Okay. Not at a time all. Not at a time all. So I want to fetch here row by row manner. Understand? Na? But this row by row mechanism in SQL language, okay, there is a no concept or no topic or no technique in SQL language. By using of the technique, I want to fetch my data in a row by row manner. Okay, now that kind of techniques are not having in the SQL. So now, sir, SQL, how it was written means as a collection of rows. As a collection of rows will be retrieval or fetching. Okay, but row by row, one by one is not happen. And that kind of feature or technique will not there in the SQL. So now whenever the users want to fetch a row by row manipulation of data or one by one row fetching of data, so at that time, the people will use what now? Cursors. And the cursor advantage is what now here? So when I'm creating cursors and which table data we need to fetch a row by row manner, okay, na? So that row or the data first I need to store under cursor memories. So once my required table data from database memory to cursor memory, once I transferred, then the cursor memory advantage is what now? It will give it us. That means cursors will give it us only one single row for one time. That means if you have a 14 rows in your cursor, 14 rows are not showing to you or not giving to you. How it was giving here, one by one, it will be give to us. So that kind of a technique or one by one manipulations, row by row manipulations of data, if you want to perform on database tables, then what we are using? Cursors. What we are using? Cursors. Okay, na? Right. So we are using cursor. So that's why cursor means what it was, simple observed. Generally what I am saying here, your database. This is your database. This is your database. Okay, in the database, this is your table. Any one table, you can take any one table. Okay, na? Any one table having some rows. So what I'm saying here, if I'm going to calling this select a star from EMP or something, then as per this request, your request will go to server, server will go to your database memory, and which table you wanted, the table directly, entire table data will send it to you into your client application. But sir, here I need one by one means the one by one operation or a technique I can't apply directly on a database memories, because database memories or databases are never give it us like that. Okay, so that's why what we want to do now, this which table you need to take one by one, that memory or that table data first you need to transfer in one separate or one temporary memory, one separate or a temporary memory. And this memory first user is created. After created this memory, what we want to do, your table first of all transferred into your cursor memory location. Transferred your cursor memory location. Okay, na? Once your entire table data we transferred into the cursor memory, then user has a chance now. Then user has a chance now to fetching your data from the cursor memory in which ways? One by one wise. Which wise here? One by one wise. Understand? Na? So that means one by one mechanism User cannot apply this mechanism on directly database memories because databases are not supporting. So that's why we need to create a separate memory. Into that memory, first your required table data transferred, and after that the data will be fetched one by one manner. So this one by one row fetching purpose only, users will create a cursors. Understand now? So now that's why here what is cursor sir means a cursor is a so what we called it is a temporary memory. It is a temporary memory, or else we called SQL, or else we called SQL private area, or else we called as it is a workspace, or else it is called as what now? Workspace. Some temporary workspace I need to prepare, and through that I can go to get my data. Okay. But in this, there are two types of cursors we have here. One is we called as what now? Explicit cursors is a one type of cursors. Second one we called as what now? Implicit cursors. Second one we called as what now? Implicit cursors. Okay. So explicit means user defined. That means these memories are created by programmer. And implicit means what now? System defined. So these are created by systems automatically. So now first we will discuss about explicit cursors now. So explicit cursors, okay na? What is the main intention these cursors means? Row by row manipulations purpose. Okay na? Right. So what I want to say, these cursors are created by user for fetching row by row, for fetching row by row or one by one, for fetching row by row or one by one. Okay. Row from a table. Okay, these cursors are created by user for fetching row by row or one by one row from a table. Okay, na? This is the main cause of your explicit cursors. But sir, if this memory, if I want to create, and after that, how the data can be loaded into this memory, then after I can fetch one by one. So these are all the things how I can do, means that there is a few steps we have here. Okay, na? How to create, right down below. Steps to create an explicit cursor. So what are the steps we have here? Step number 1. First, I need to declare. Declared cursor variable, first of all. Declared a cursor variable. Declared a cursor variable. So what is the syntax to declare, sir? Means that we have here declared cursor, and we should give it cursor name is here we need to write a select query. Step number 2. After that, what we want to do, open my cursor connection. Open my cursor connection. What is the syntax to open the cursor connection here? Okay. Now I just use it, open, and give it my cursor name. That's it, simple. After open, the data will be loading into cursor memory. Then I need to fetch. So fetch, okay, rows from a cursor. So what is the syntax to that? Fetch, and you are fetching from cursor, so your cursor name, and every fetching of cursor data, again we need to store into variables. Then step number 4, after that I need to close my cursor connection. Close my cursor connection. So what is the syntax to close this cursor connection? Close, and I want to give my cursor name. So these are the 4 steps, guys, here. You need to remember whenever we want to work with the cursors. And which type of your explicit cursors we need to work. Okay, now? Right. So these are the 4 steps we need to use whenever you want to working with explicit cursors and fetching the data in a one by one or row by row manner. Okay, now? Right. And after that, here what it was happened, each step I will explain to you. Observe. This is your database memory. This is your database memory. Okay, now in this database, you have some table. So in my first step, what it was happened, sir, means that I'm creating one cursor variable. Suppose I'm giving some variable name is a C1. Whenever you want to declaring variable, for this variable purpose, it was allocating some memory. And generally, all of you know in C language, Java, .NET, whenever you declared a variable, for every variable purpose, it was allocating some memory. Int x comma y comma z. So that means every variable purpose memory allocations are happened. Same as in the cursor, C1 memory is going to be allocated. This is in the first step. But in the first step, only cursor variable is declared and memory is allocating for the variable. But this query will not executed. Your select query, whatever you return, the query will not execute. When this query will execute means once your cursor connection will be open. So now I open cursor connection here. Whenever I open cursor connection, it will go to select query executing on the database. Then the data as per your query, the table data will transferred into cursors. Okay, na? Transferred into cursors. So after successfully data is loading into cursor memory, then what we want to do? Now you need to fetching. Now I need to fetching from cursor. I want to fetching from cursor. In which manner? Row by row. One by one manner I can fetch. After fetching your data one by one manner, then finally what you want to do? Close your cursor connection here again. So once your requirement, your task is fulfilled, then close your connection. So these are what now? The 4 steps, each step what it was happen internally. Understand now? So now, but here the thing is, before I need to fetching the data from this cursor memory, first of all, what should be know in this cursor, whether my data successfully loading or not. That means in my cursor memory, data is available or not. So that status of cursor, we need to first check it out. Because in your cursor memory, if data is available, then I can fetch. I can fetch. If data is not available, you can't fetch. Okay, na? But how the programmer will knows whether data is existing or not in your cursor means there is some attributes we have it here. What we have here? Attributes. And these attributes, right down below, attributes of explicit cursors. Attributes of explicit cursor. Okay, now these attributes, what it was tell us means that these attributes are used to tell or to know about the status of a cursor. Status means, what is the mean by status? Position. What is the position? Whether my cursor is having with data na or without data na. So which position your cursor is having, your cursor memory is having. So that is telling us. And what is the syntax to check your cursor status means? Here you can give it to your cursor name and percentile to use your attribute name. Okay, now? Right. So now here observe. What kind of attributes are there? First attribute, percentile is open attribute. Okay. This attribute is called as it is a default attribute, guys, here. It's a default attribute. Okay. Which returns true when cursor connection is successfully open. Okay, successfully open. Otherwise it returns false. Second one, percentile, what next here? Found attribute or is not found attribute. So percentile not found attribute. Okay. What is this, sir? So it returns true when cursor is not having the data. It returns true when cursor is not having the data. Otherwise returns false. See carefully these statements observed. Next, percentile found. Percentile found, what it was do? It returns true. When cursor is having the data. Otherwise returns false. Next, fourth one, percentile row count. Okay, it returns how many number of times the fetch statement is executed. It returns how many number of times the fetch statement is executed. Okay, now right. So these are complete attributes, guys, here, and every attribute as having some specific reasons why should we want to use and how to use. You will see in the programs. Okay, right. And now let me come out and see the example. First example. Write a cursor program. Write a cursor program to fetch a single row from EMP table. Okay, now? So now you can see this. How to fetching a single row from your EMP table now. Okay, by using of what? Cursor. Let me come out and see. Careful observe, don't write, first observe. This is your entire the table. Okay, now? So now there are 4 steps you have: declaration, open, fetch, and close. These are the 4 steps we are using. So first step is declaration. So now I'm going to declare. So declared cursor name is C1 is here I'm writing select query. Suppose I wanted your employee name and salary details from which table? EMP. And one more thing, remember, along with cursor, which query we need to write means, okay, it means that we are writing only select query. But here, sir, can I use an insert query, update query, delete query means, no, never. Cursors will be declared with which command? Select command only, not any other commands you can't use. Okay, right. This is your first step. In this step, what I'm saying here, the whatever the variable name are you declared here, on the name C1, the memory is going to be allocated. On which name? C1 variable. So memory is only allocated, but this command will not executed now. This command, when it will executed, once your connection will be open. Okay. So now, okay, sir, up to here, okay, first step. And now we are see in this or through this select command, how many columns data you are retrieving from the table? 2 columns. Which columns? Name and salary. So those 2 columns values I want to store into variables. That's why I'm taking here the related variables I'm going to declare. V underscore salary. Okay, fine. Okay, now? So two columns I selected. So that related two variables are declared. Suppose you selected 100 columns, then 100 variables you have to declare. Otherwise, instead of 100 variables, you can declare a row level attribute, one variable. Okay, na? So now this is what we can use. So now, okay, two columns, two variables I declared. Okay, this is the declaration block. After declaration, which block? Begin execution block. In this execution block or begin block, what we want to do, open my C1. So then what happened? Cursor connection will be open. So whenever cursor connection is open, internally which command is executed? Select ename comma salary from EMP. This command is executed on EMP table of databases here, and how many columns data will fetch? Two columns. But my table is having 8 columns. But here I'm calling only 2 columns data. So the 2 columns, 14 employees data will store under which memory? Cursor memory. Because in my table, how many employees total? That means 14 employees names, 14 employees salaries. Retrieval from database, keeping into cursor. Understand na? Yes. So now this is what it was happen. After fetching and open, what next I have to do after open? Open means what? No, query successfully executed, data successfully load into cursor memory. Then what next step I have to do? Fetch. Are you fetching from which memory? Cursor memory. And whatever are you fetching, that values, fetching row values, I want to store into variables. What is my variable? V underscore ename, V underscore salary. Okay. Now the fetching started from first row. Your fetching starts from first row in the table. Now first row employee name is what? Smith. The Smith is storing under which variable? V underscore ename. Next to that employee, what it was fetching here? Salary. Salary will storing into which variable? V underscore salary. The first employee or first row of employee name and salary retrieval from cursor memory, storing into variables. After that, these variables, I want to print on my screen. Na? Yes. So V underscore ename, concatenation comma, V underscore salary. Okay. I just fetching printing. After printing, can I close my cursor? Yes. And now end my begin block and to execute. How many rows fetching? Only one row. That one row is what now? Smith and 800. Understand na? This is, so by seeing of this, what you understand here, user can fetch data from cursor at a time. At once, how many rows I can fetch here? Single row. So we can fetch a single row from the cursor memory at once. At once, you can't fetch multiple rows. You can fetch only one single row at once. Okay. And that was we are fetching. This is one small example on the cursor, right on. Okay, right. So in this example, what you understand, every fetching of statement in the cursor always fetching a single row. But now in my table, how many rows are there? Sorry, in my cursor memory, how many rows are there? 14 rows are there. But how many rows fetching? One row. Suppose, sir, if I need to fetch multiple rows. Okay, now? Now write down. One more example below, right? Write a cursor program. Write a cursor program. Write a cursor program. Write a cursor program to fetch multiple rows from EMP table. Okay, now we can see multiple rows how to fetch here. Okay, careful observe. Up to here, the same thing I will take it. Okay, up to here, same. If I'm going to use one fetch statement, if I use how many rows fetching? Single row. How many rows fetching? Single row. Now, suppose multiple rows I need to fetch. Then what I want to do, you can see the same program, little bit modifications I will do. Up to here, okay. Then after, again this fetching and DBMS. So these are, I will take it now. One more time, one more time, one more, and one more. Total, how many fetch statements I used here? 5 fetch statements I used. And finally, I say close my C1. Close my C1. Then after end to execute. How many rows come? 5 rows only come. So that means what you understand? Each fetching statement will always fetching only one row. This is a cursor nature. Now understand na? Cursors cannot fetching at a time all rows. It was fetching one by one row. Okay na? Right down below. మార్నింగ్ ఈవినింగ్ 7కి ఎక్కడ ఉంటుంది సార్ 6 కదా ఎంతైనా 7:30 కలాలి completed. So now you can see. Now, why I'm showing this example means now you can understand that every fetch statement will fetching only a single row. Are 1 hour class, yeah. Listen and leave happily, huh? Yeah. Classroom also talking, outside talking, huh? Everywhere talking, talking, talking. Okay, right. Here, how many statements I usually here? 3 statements. Why I'm using 3 statements means now you can confirm that every fetch statement will be fetching only single row. And now, okay, in your table, not only one single row we have, or not only 2, 3, we have a multiple rows we have in the table. Yes or no? Let me come out and see. Almost how many rows we have here? 14 rows. But sir, if I want to fetch this 14 rows by such a way, now how many fetch statement I want to use? 14 fetch statements. Just imagination. In your table, there are 1 lakh rows are there. 1 lakh fetch statements we need to write. Can it possible here? No. So we can't write like this. Then what we want to use? So there we required what now? Looping statements. Which statements? Loopings. So that loopings already, your PLSQL supports how many loop statements? 3. Simple loop, while loop, and for loop. Okay, na? So these 3 loopings are how it was working in our cursors to fetching of your data one by one manner. Okay, na? Right. So now below write down working with loops. And first one, by using, what is this? Simple loop. Simple loop already syntax, you know, all of you. Yes or no? What is the syntax of simple loop? Loop, loop, execute statements, end loop. Simple loop, execute statements and end loop. And simple loop, which type of loop? Infinity loop. So that means whatever the logic we written under simple loop, that will execute it how many times? Infinity times. So that's why what we want to do? Exit. Okay. That understand now yesterday? Now let me come. I'm using here. The first, as usual, you have to declare your cursor C1 is select ename comma salary from EMP table. Then as usual, the two related variables I'm going to declaring here, and v underscore salary. Okay, right. After that, begin, and later open C1. Up to here, what it was happen? Memory allocated, connection open, select query executed, executing command, data will retrieving from database to cursors. Up to here clear now? Now your data, are you fetching from database to cursor memory? Okay. Then after, I'm going to using what now? Simple loop. Under this loop statement, under or inside of loop, okay, I'm writing which one? Fetch. So fetch from where? C1, storing into which variables? V underscore and V sal. Okay, na? So here fetch statement I was written inside the loop. Inside or outside? Inside the loop. So that means what happened? This fetch statement, how many times executed? 14 times executed as per your table. How many times? 14 times. But generally infinity times, but I'm going to exit now. Okay, some condition I'm writing and exit. Now here, this loop is executed infinity times. Okay. Then fetching C1, storing into variables. And now what I want to do, whether in C1 data is available or not. If C1 data is available, then definitely those values are storing under variables. If it is not available, then my variables are empty. Empty or not? Yes. But now I need to check. And here I need to write a logic. What is the logic? This fetch statement, if I leave like this, okay, as per the definition of simple loop, this loop or this fetch statement is executed how many times? Infinity times. So what I want to do, I need to exit now. I need to exit now. When I want to exit, once my table in my cursor, the top to bottom, how many rows are there? That all rows are, once it was fetched out, successfully fetching out, then automatically out. Understand now? So that's what I'm going to using exit. But when I want to exit, when C1 percentile data not found. Understand now? When I want to exit, in my cursor memory, if data is not found, data is not found. And now we can see not found attribute returns what now? True. Not found attribute returns true. When it was returns true? When data is not there. If data is there, false. But your exit loop, when I need to exit, when data is there, exit, data is not there, exit. Data is not there in my cursor, then exit. If data is there, fetching. The data fetching. Yes or no? So now this is what. If data is available, then the data I need to print on my screen. print on my screen. Yes or no? Where is your data stored? E underscore e name concatenation v underscore salary. Okay, na? So what I'm saying here, this is a fetching statement, fetching data from C1 and storing into variable. So now what happened when I need to exit this statement means when data is not found. When data is not found, exit. If data is found, that data I need to print. Okay, na? Now you can say what we want to do, end my loop. Is it clear? Yes, end the loop. Later on what? Close C1. Later on what? End your, okay, begin statement. And now I'm going to execute now. Now you can see how many rows we are fetching? 14 rows. But tell me this 14 rows fetching at a time, one by one. One by one. So that means under this loop is executed how many times now? 15th times. So 15 times it will be loop. 1 to 14 times records are available. That's why fetching and printing. But when it will go to 15th time, in your table 15th row is there? Not there. Not there means that data is a founder, not founder. Not found. That's why immediately it will return true. True means your loop is exit from your program. Okay, na? So this is what we called as your simple loop. How you can use. Write down below. Completed. Now we can see. I think you all of you know up to this what it was happened. Okay, na? Up to this what happened? Your database data database table data successfully transferring into cursor. This is up to your common. Now loop understand. Here I was declared two variables. The two variables purpose, it was allocating some memories. V underscore name, V underscore salary. Data loading. And now come to loop and fetching started. Fetching from C1. So now first record fetching from C1. Okay, C1 memory. This is C1 memory now. These fetching data storing into where? Storing into where? Variables. Okay, first employee name is what now? Smith, 800. Storing into variables. After storing into variables, it will come to exit statement checking. Here it is checking this condition. Okay, now this condition, data found or not found? Found. Data already found. Found means this attribute returns true or false? False. False means exit or not exit? Not exit. Not exit means what happened? Your data successfully print on the screen. Now printed. Now printed. What is the name? Smith and 800. After printed, again what happened? Your loop will come to again fetch. Then this memories are empty. Refreshing your variable memories. Okay. Automatically refresh it because again your loop started iteration. Again new iteration started. New iteration started means again your variable data will be refreshing. So now again it will be execute now second time. Fetching from C1 and storing into variables. Which record storing now? ln 1600. After storing into variables, okay, now checking this condition, data found or not found? Found. Found means what? False. False means exit or not exit? Not exit. So come back to print on the screen. So these two variables data printed. Second record printed. After printed second record, then it will come back to where it is again, fetch. Again fetch. Now it was going to fetch. Fetch which row? Third row. First row is over. Second row, third row. Third row fetching. Third row fetching. Fetching data where it will store? Variables. After that, this condition checking data is there or not there? There means true or false? False. False means exit or not exit? Not exit. Not exit means your data printed. Yes, third record is printed. Like next one, fourth iteration, fifth iteration, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. The 14 records are data found, 14 records are fetching. Next, it will go to 15th iteration will go. 15th iteration will go. Here already 14 records are completed. After 14th record, do you have any record here? No. Data found or not found? Not found. So that means your C1 percentile not found. What it was returns? True. True means exit. Yes, loop is exit. Understand now? Yes. So like this, your fetch statement is executed 15 times. At 15th iteration, data is not found, so that it returns true and immediately exit. Clear now? This is what now? Simple loop working nature. That's why compulsory what should be used? Exit. Okay. And the same thing, how to use while loop and how to use for loops. So that we will discuss in tomorrow class. So I stop it and I will send this notes in your Google class. Okay, right. So the notes is uploaded. Once check it out. Okay, now. And so tomorrow we will check it out how we can use your remaining loops here, while and simple loop, what we call for loop. Okay, now? Right, yes. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Notes was pending last day. Very last day notes was pending.
I didn't send it. Oh, I will upload.
But actually, you don't have you have or not today. Class notes. The very last was the last one.
Running notes is main notes. Running notes not uploaded. Huh?
Only one day, last day of software.
Last day. Okay, no problem. Main notes में देख लो.
Today you have
Not that file is not there.